Harvesting an onion is just about the easiest thing you can do in the garden. You dig it out, you pull it up, and you shake off the dirt. With the annual onion bounty though, we're not really worried about the how, because that part is super easy. When exactly to do said harvesting, as well as what to do with the bulbs immediately afterwards, are the burning questions here. It's not that onions are this crazy impossible crop to cultivate, but they can be tricky for some. As well, they do take a long time to grow. So we definitely want to get this part right. Which is why today I've gathered all of my best tips for getting the most out of your onion harvest this year. I've been growing these guys for about 30 years now, and it's probably only the last 10 to 12 that I've really nailed them down. So buckle up, it's onion harvesting time. With a crop like onions, big bulbs are for sure a goal. But it's not the only one. Yes, we need our onions to bulb up to actually get a harvest, but beyond that, the things we do prior to the harvest, during the harvest, as well as after the harvest, is all about storage. If you've had trouble getting your onions to grow properly, then this video is probably a little bit ahead of you. Don't worry though, because I'll leave several links in the description below that cover everything you need to know about planting and growing onions to catch you up to speed. It all boils down to picking the right day-length varieties for your location and your latitude, and then timing the planting perfectly. Only then can your onions peak their growth at the beginning of summer, growing those bulbs until the harvest a few weeks later. Which is where we're at today. But how do we know that the onions are really ready to pick? How do we know when it's the right time to harvest? Well, the answer to that lies in the foliage. You see, for as much as they look like it, onions are not actually a root crop. The bulbs we're after are simply a collection and group of specialized and modified leaves. The plants themselves are biennials, meaning they live for 2 years, and they flower in their second summer. Onion plants are designed to create a bulb, much like garlic, to store sugars and energy to get them through winter dormancy, so that they can flower and go to seed the following year. But we're not interested in those blooms, only the bulbs. In fact, as onion growers, we never want to see them flower. That bulb is our only focus, and it's the foliage that not only makes up the onion bulb, but it's also the indicator that tells us they're ready to harvest. When the whorl of onion leaves as a whole starts to turn yellow, weaken, soften, and flops over 90 degrees all on their own, you know that your onions need to be harvested within 2 weeks. The base of the foliage right above the bulb is called the neck, and this process is called breaking the neck. Onions do this all on their own with no help from us. But why is this important for the harvest? Why is this onion here so much different from this one over here? The answer to that always comes down to storage. As the onion plant's leaves die off in the waning days of summer, the top 2 to 4 layers form this protective papery coating for the bulbs. And just like with our garlic, it's these protective layers that fortify our onions and allow us to store them for 5 to 6 months instead of 2 to 3 weeks. It's an easy telltale sign that our onion bulbs are ready for harvest and they're at their peak for max longevity. So, the leaves turning yellow, brown, and crispy, and then flopping over all on their own is our cue that it's time to pull them up. But to truly get the most from our onion harvest, we need to back it up about a month or so. 3 to 4 weeks before your intended harvest date, all feeding and fertilizing of your onion plants needs to stop. It serves no further purpose for the crop, and it can actually do more harm than good by increasing foliage and new leaves at the exact time when we don't want them. Then, about 2 weeks after that, at least 1 week before we harvest, we also need to stop watering. Onions need to be harvested dry, in order to store properly, and they just don't really need the moisture at this point. Keep an eye out for stormy weather and heavy rains as well. The onion bulbs simply need to be harvested dry. There's no way around it. Okay, with all of that done, we can go ahead and harvest our onions that have the broken necks. Again, you want to do this within about 2 weeks of those necks flopping over. Now, it's super easy, but the main thing is we don't want to ever damage the bulbs because that's going to affect the storage. So the easiest way to do this is to simply excavate around the bulb and then pull up using the bulb. Don't pull up using the foliage. Ooh, it's a tough one. The whole thing's going to come up. There we go. A perfectly harvested onion. The onion should pull up no problem as long as you carefully excavate around the bulbs. The whole process should only take you a few minutes. Just don't yank the stems or be too rough with them. Once pulled, loosen off any of those large clumps of dirt that are still sticking to the roots, but never wash them and never wash the bulbs. Again, we need to harvest our onions perfectly dry. We'll worry and tackle that residual dirt a little later. At this stage, it's smooth sailing, and the only thing we have to worry about now is curing them. We do this by simply hanging the onions, bulb side down, in a cool, dry garage, shed, or carport. The goal here is to completely dry out those outer 2 to 4 layers, fortifying the onion bulb, essentially allowing it to grow its own set of armor. After about 2 weeks of curing, cut the stems around 2 inches above the bulb and trim those roots right up flush with the bottom. Brush off any remaining clumps of dirt, and your onions are ready to be stored in a cool, dry place for upwards of 6 months, depending on the variety. Sweet types of onions, regardless of their color, don't tend to keep nearly as long as the pungent, spicy ones. So keep that in mind. And with that, we've successfully harvested and cured our onions for max storage. A few important steps that may not seem like a lot on the surface, but they really can make a difference for how long your onions are going to last. So, to hammer home those main points, let's go ahead and do a recap. Bulb onions are an important crop to a lot of backyard growers. For sure, they're on many a bucket list. Kinda tricky to get started sometimes, and on the longer side to grow. It really is important that we master the harvest. And even though this is kind of a small one, hopefully today I've given you all the tips that you need to know to have your best onion year yet. As always, guys, happy growing, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey, thanks so much for watching, guys. Truly, this channel wouldn't exist without passionate gardeners like you. For even more info-packed videos like this, check out this playlist of garden quickies here. And for those of you that are interested, my online course, Vegetable Gardening Basics, is live and ready for enrollment. As always, happy growing, and I'll see you in the next one.